Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a nice break. So let's get started with our application questions. Now remember, application questions always refer to questions that use statements or scenarios or case studies or pictures and provides questions you have to answer. Now our first question here, identify the interrelationship between Delta dealers and the market environment described by the following statements. So what are they asking? They're asking you to identify what the relationship is and with what component of the market environment. So statement A, all of Delta dealers' raw materials is bought, there's a little clue, from Alpha Materials. So out of this statement, we can then conclude that Alpha Materials is a supplier to Delta dealers. So the relationship here is between the business and its supplier. All right, so there we have it. This is then an example of a relationship between the business and its supplier. Let's take a look at statement B. Delta dealer makes use of better to distribute and resell their products. So remember, when somebody distributes a business's products, they are called an intermediary. So this is the relationship here. It's between the business and its intermediary. There we have it. So that's the relationship between the business and its intermediaries. Then statement C. Echo dealers recently opened their business close to Delta dealer and are attracting most of Delta dealers' customers. So we can then see that Echo dealers is a new entrant to the market, which means they are competitors to Delta dealer. So the relationship here then will be between the business and its competitors. So there we have it. That is the relationship given or identified for statement C. So that is then where we identified the relationships. Let's move on to question 2. Elsa owns an ice-making business. She recently employed Anna to work as a cashier in her business. Now, for the question, discuss the relationship, which relationship between Elsa as an employer and Anna as an employee. So what does the question ask? The question asks for us to discuss the relationship between the employer and the employee. Now, discuss means, of course, full sentences. So now we know the employer needs the employee to perform certain duties. So they are dependent on the employees to do their job or perform duties in order for them to deliver a product or service. And in return, the employers will then pay the employees for offering their services to the business. So this is the relationship between the employer and the employees when it comes to money. So the employer will pay them, but the employees will deliver a service. But the employer will also consult their employees. So they will ask them for advice when it comes to developing strategies. So that is then a discussion of the relationship between the employer and the employees. All right, so let's move on to our last application questions. And in this instance, it's a scenario. So read the scenario below and answer the questions. Detroit Rock. Detroit Rock is a music store owned by Kid Roll. Recently, they have experienced employees on strike. This had a major impact on their service delivery. The customers have started to support Beat Music, a similar business close by. The weakening rand has made imports from the USA very expensive. Now, what is our question? Question A. Classify each of the problems faced by DR according to the relevant business environment. Now, we have 3 problems that we can identify. The first one is the employees on strike. That is our first problem here. When we read on with the scenario, the second problem will be here, where the customers have started to support beat music. And the last problem then will be the weakening rand. So in this instance, the problems were already given. But sometimes a question can ask you to quote the problem. Then you will see here, we have then quoted the whole sentence. So you will see problem 1. Recently, they have experienced employees on strike. Problem 2, the customers have started to support beat music, a similar business close by. And problem 3, the weakening rand has made imports from the USA very expensive. But the question now asks to classify each to the relevant business environment. So business environments being micro, market, or macro. So let's take a look. Our first problem is the employees that are on strike. All right? So employees is, of course, a component in our micro environment. So our relevant business environment for this one will be the micro environment. All right, so that's our first problem then classified. Let's take a look at our second problem. The customers have started to support beat music. A similar business, there's a second clue, nearby. Now remember, a business that delivers a similar or the same product or service as our business is seen as a competitor. And a competitor is part or a component of course, the market environment. So the relevant environment for this problem then is our market environment. All right, so that is our second problem, market environment. The last one, the weakening rand. So has made imports from the USA very expensive. So this is giving us clues that this is an effect of exchange rate, where the dollar is too expensive for this business to import products from the USA. Exchange rate is a factor of the economic environment, and the economic environment is one of the components of the macro environment. So our relevant business environment for this problem will then be our macro environment. All right. So there we have classified each of our problems according to the relevant business environment. But now the question continues, and it asks in question B, describe the interrelationships between the 3 business environments, of course being the micro, market, and macro environment. Now, if we want to describe the relationship between these 3 environments, it is always best to use an example. So you can always state by saying changes in the macro environment may affect the micro environment, which may then affect the market environment. But then we are going to use an example. So for example, an increase in the interest rate may lead to an increase in the production costs and an increase in our prices. And this means that then the consumer spending will decrease because consumers won't be happy to pay higher prices for our products. Or we can answer it like this: changes in the market environment may affect the microenvironment. And again, we are going to use an example. New competitors entering the market might force businesses to decrease their prices. So the market environment being the competitors, and now we have to decrease our prices, which is in our microenvironment. So describing again, meaning full sentences, and when describing the interrelationship between the 3 business environments, it's always easiest to use an example. That's it for our application questions. Before we wrap up, let's go for a quick break.